Hey friends, it's Eric Hultgren, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. On this episode, we talk to Kevin Walsh once again, president of Schaafsma Heating and Cooling. And on this episode, we talk about R22. What is it? Why do you care? And what should you do about it? I hope you dig this episode of the Michigan's Best Podcast.
Kevin Walsh, how are you, my friend?
I am doing well, Eric. How are you?
I am doing well as well, and it's excellent to hear. And we are talking today about something that my guess is probably a lot of people might have in their homes, but might not be aware of. So you guys just put out a blog post talking about R22. Can you tell me first, what is R22?
So the common name for R22 is freon, and that is what is in most older air conditioners today. That is the refrigerant that goes through there. That's the blood that circulates the cool air throughout the house, really.
And so it's being, as of January 1st this year, it has been deemed illegal by the EPA in the United States. But if you've got an air conditioner, as I understand it, Kevin, if you've got an air conditioner that's even as recent as 2009, it might still have R22 in it, yes?
Oh, yes. They started back in the 90s working to phase out R22, and there had been steps in the recent years cutting back on production, and now this year there is no production of any new R22. The industry has made a switch over the last probably the 10 to 15 years to a refrigerant called 410, and it's something that we have sold since going back into the early 90s when it was first introduced. The problem with R22 freon is that it was damaging the ozone. And so it was deemed that we needed to eliminate that refrigerant. And we're at the point now where the only R22 available is what's been reclaimed out of old equipment and recycled.
And so, Kevin, one of the things we talked about in the last episode when we were talking about the Schaafsma difference was just that difference. So what was it about R22 that you guys noticed early on and started to go much earlier than the EPA even said and not install things that have R22 in it?
Well, we really probably, like I said, early in the mid 90s, we started selling the newer equipment with the newer refrigerant. For the last 15 years, that's been predominantly all we have sold. And we did that because we looked at the phase out of R22 and recognized that, starting in 2015, you were going to start seeing shortages of it, and which shortages typically drive the price up, which is what's been happening for the last several years of R22. The price keeps going up. And, as you have equipment that's installed, we'll say in 2005, now in 2020, the equipment might have life left in it, but you need to recharge it. And if you're recharging it with R22, you have to really question if you want to have that kind of expense on something that's already 15 years old. So that's why we switched to the newer style.
So give me a perspective on that cost, right? Let's say I have one at my house and it needs to be recharged, like what am I looking at as market price to get an R22 recharged right now? So
you have to understand that if you need to have it recharged, it's because there's a leak someplace in that system. The refrigerant doesn't wear out. I've heard of people in the industry telling customers that it's worn out and you need to add some more to it. That's simply not true. It leaked out someplace, so you need to find the leak and fix it. And there's a variety of ways you can do that. Some inexpensive, some more costly. Depending on how well you want the job to be done and how long you expect it to last. Then after that, then you have to add the refrigerant. It's typically done by contractors charging by the pound or by the ounce. Again, it goes back into doing the job the right way or the quick way. The quick way is a contractor takes a rough guess that you're 2 pounds low. They add 2 pounds to the system. It's up and operating, and away they go. And the reality is the way you need to add it is you add the refrigerant a little at a time, allow the system to stabilize, get the operating pressures where you can then determine if you're still low or not, versus overcharging or leaving it undercharged. Because each time that the equipment is, or each equipment that's over or undercharged is actually costing you more in efficiency to run it. So you want to get the refrigerant charge correct. And that's one of those things homeowners, they can't tell if a system's overcharged, undercharged. So some contractors just will charge it and take a guess and be on their way, and it's a relatively cheap repair, versus doing it the right way and getting the proper charge in the system. One thing that is available to homeowners that we don't typically recommend, but it is available, there are what's called drop-in replacement refrigerants for R22.
And what is that?
Well, it's a different refrigerant, and you can take the R22 out of the system, and you can put this in place of it. The reason we don't typically do that is you lose efficiency and capacity, so it doesn't perform as well as R22. So efficiency, you might take your unit and you might lose 10% of the efficiency on it. The capacity part, so we'll say you have a unit that's 3-ton cooling system. You have a 2,000 square foot house and you have a 3-ton unit in there.
Sure.
You put the new one in and it does not put out as much cool air as the R22 did. So instead of having a 2-ton of capacity, and for cooling, it might now only be 2 3/4 ton. And that can make a difference to the homeowner because they've, maybe that old equipment has just been keeping up on keeping that house cool. And now you've put in the new refrigerant, and guess what? Now it can't hold the temperature in the house. And then there are some contractors or some service techs that have, not many, but there are some that mix the refrigerant. They confuse that being a drop-in, and they think that they can just, you're 2 pounds low, I can just add 2 pounds of this new stuff. And
wow,
you can do it, and they'll walk away and it'll be working and everything, but you might as well figure that in, not too long a time, you're going to be buying a new unit because you're going to take the compressor out on that one.
So, Kevin, let me ask you 2 questions. One, how can I tell as a consumer, because I'm sure most people don't know, how can I tell if I've got an R22 refrigerant in my air conditioner?
If it's one that has been installed prior to 2010, unless it was installed by us, there's a good chance it's R22. That was still the predominantly sold air conditioning unit in the industry. There were only a few contractors that were really ahead of the curve on installing the newer systems. You can also look at the nameplate on the equipment itself. It'll identify what type of refrigerant should be installed into that. And if it's worn off, you can call us and ask us. Give us a model number and we can tell you what type of refrigerant it is.
And so what would be your recommendation? So I get done with this interview with you, I walk outside and I go, oh, I've got an air conditioner with R22 in it. What steps should I be taking as a consumer? Should I be looking to switch this out right now? Because obviously if it's hurting the environment, there's sort of a benefit to swapping that out. But I'm wondering from your perspective, what should I do?
Really, if the air conditioner is operating and you have no leaks in it, there's nothing that you really need to do. It becomes an issue when the refrigerant is let out of the system. That's when it starts hurting the environment. And it'll continue to operate just fine with R22. So there's nothing that you absolutely have to do. Now, if it is having issues operating, then that's when you need to evaluate your options.
Absolutely. Kevin, as always, a pleasure, my friend. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you. Look forward to it.